Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pels.
And I'm Ruth Lorensson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. Well, hello, Tom.
Hi, Ruth.
Here we are again in our ABCs of thriving. I love the conversations we've had so far over this. It's almost been a year now that we've been in this season. So this series of ABCs of thriving, and we are on the letter U. So do you want to set us up? Like, tell our listeners what we're going to be talking about.
Yes, because you, but Y-O-U, you, Ruth, suggested understanding.
Yeah.
For you. And I hope I'm understanding what you meant or might have been referring to. So understanding. There are multiple senses of that word, understanding. And it can be interpersonal or intrapersonal. So interpersonal is between self and somebody else. Intrapersonal is with self. So with each of these three that I'm suggesting, we consider it's both intrapersonal and interpersonal.
Yeah.
Okay? Me with me and me with thee. Okay? So I'm hoping this will be understandable. Okay, I will quit with the pun.
It's the cheesy dad jokes.
That's exactly what it is. Now granddad jokes. Anyway, so there is understanding that, and so the phrase is, I am understanding. Okay? And that can be understanding in the sense of knowledge about a subject, knowledge of a situation, or knowledge about how something works. I am understanding.
Yeah.
Then there is, I am understanding in the sense of a positive relationship manifesting empathy.
Yeah.
Not just sympathy, which is feeling with, but empathy, feeling into.
Yeah.
And I am feeling into. So I am understanding. And I'm being understanding. And then there is, I am understanding, and understanding in the sense of an informal agreement.
Yeah.
We're in an agreement, in an accord, and I can be in that agreement with myself. I am understanding, or I am understanding.
We have an understanding.
Yes.
We have an agreement. Yeah.
Yep. And for my part, I am understanding. I have this agreement.
Yeah.
And reciprocated or not reciprocated, hopefully there's understanding, and I can do my part. I can't do your part. I can support and encourage that. So there's understanding in those three senses.
And then obviously, and I can't wait we're going to go into these now, but obviously what we're saying is to have understanding in those three areas leads to a thriving life.
Manifests it.
Yeah.
Yes. Facilitates it.
And without it,
you're maybe surviving.
Bombing in the surviving.
You are definitely in survival mode because you're not understanding. I am not understanding. The subject could be me or an issue.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding.
And I love the fact that this it's with ourselves and with others too. And I think that's so important. So as we go through these three ways, these three measures of understanding, I think it's just really important as you're listening to this, listeners, just to hold we'll dip in and out of, the in our inner world and our, whatever you called it, the world.
Yes, me or thee.
Me or thee. But yeah, just think it through in those. So every section that we're looking at, we've got the me and the thee.
Intrapersonal,
but let's
interpersonal.
Let's start with understanding as just in terms of knowledge. Like,
yes.
Let's start there. Like, why is that so important for ourselves and our interactions with other people? Why? And obviously, there's a journey with that because, babies are born and they don't have knowledge. They learn to crawl and then they learn to walk. And as we grow up, as we grow through our entire life, we have this we can have an accumulation of knowledge.
Hopefully. And a lack of it.
Yeah.
That has implications.
Yeah. So talk to me, Tom, like what's at the core of some of that? I mean, I'm kind of thinking, what comes to my head is that when you have a conversation with someone, we're in a political season right now in the United States of America and globally. Yeah, absolutely, yes. But here, anyway, in the USA, like I know that if you have a conversation with someone politically, and you can have differences, right? You can be on different sides of whatever. But if you don't have knowledge in a conversation, it can be exasperating.
Yes.
Right? Because knowledge informs, I guess it makes things less, in my mind anyhow, it makes things less siloed. It shows that when I've got knowledge on a issue, in fact this morning we were in our pre-conversation, you went into this whole story of the Wild West,
the OK
right?
Corral, and how that was actually
and that's a piece of knowledge I did not have this morning, which is why, listeners, I love doing this podcast with Tom, because every day is a new bit of knowledge with Tom. But you gave me this like story of the Wild West, and we're not going to go into it now, but it was knowledge to help me understand where we are today. And as a British person, I've got a lot of learning to do here in America with how politics work, and it's different. It's not the same as the UK. So all that to say is that bit of knowledge will help me. It will help me engage with others. It will help me understand the nuances that I might not. I could just read something in a completely different way if I didn't have that background knowledge that you gave me today. Yes. So,
and a lack of knowledge leads to misunderstanding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now I'm not understanding. I am actually misunderstanding.
And so that's the interrelationships, isn't it? It's the how we connect with people. So when we have knowledge, when we pursue knowledge, when we're not just, I think there is this appetite of learning. I've got more to know. I don't know everything. There's part of that in understanding, isn't there? And that leads to great interpersonal conversations. A way of, we talked about this earlier, there's, the whole idea of if we have a pursuit of knowledge and we try and understand maybe someone else's point of view, or maybe a part of the history that we've never really understood before, and we're cautious about
our own history.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. But then when we do that, it's a gift really for someone else.
Yes. The phrase, I know stuff. Yeah, I know stuff. I know stuff about myself. I know stuff about somebody else. I know stuff about situations. And it's the lack of knowledge that often promotes misunderstanding. And then we aren't understanding. And I'm not understanding.
And I think what you're saying about ourselves as well is so important. And, I think I don't know what the statistics are here, but my observation with my own life and friends around my life, I'm 48 now, and I know that it's in your kind of mid to late 30s, maybe earlier, but people start going to therapy around that time because they want to know about themselves. It's like, the rush to kind of prove yourself in your 20s or whatever it is, or explore the world suddenly. And I don't want to box the age in, but there is a time of life where you go, actually, I need to spend time on myself, understanding, and you go back to your childhood and you go back to some of the assumptions you carry, and you unpack your own understanding of who am I and what do I actually believe and what do I actually think, and that is so, when people engage in that, it's so beneficial for everyone else around them too, because they become more of a whole person,
Yes.
So.
And the knowledge can be about how something works. How do I work? How does this work?
Physically, even health-wise, yeah.
And just not to go off on a rabbit trail in the neuroscience, but neurons in the brain and the glial cells promote homeostasis and the functioning of the neurons, but the neurons are what process the information. What do I know? How can I access it? What knowledge do I have about some subject, myself, etc., a situation, or how something works? Well, here's a bit of knowledge that babies, as they grow, hundreds of billions of neurons. And these neurons have synapses, which is the little part at the end that connects and can connect to another neuron's synapse. And as we grow and experience things, it creates synapses, connections where one neuron can communicate information to another and another and another in these chain. And with nerve pruning, it starts eliminating them and refining them, narrowing them down. It's not that new ones can't be created, nerve regeneration, new ones can, but it wants to snip off ones that aren't relevant and don't make any sense anymore. And so just like a gardener, here's the analogy, just like a gardener would prune a plant, the brain does that. In the garden of our brain. And what information, what knowledge is retained, what is redirected, that sort of thing. So I am understanding. I know stuff.
And so just before we move on to the second one, I think, the lesson here that we're saying is actually for our listeners who are interested in thriving, which we hope, that's the whole point, right?
That's the point.
Of this podcast, at least this series of this podcast, pay attention to, I wonder whether, there is a journey there where we kind of bump up against stuff that we need to find more understanding about.
Yes.
Right? So it might be like, I wonder whether it's just like, what is that for me now? So I know that when I had my kids, 13 years ago now, I got really into healthy foods, and I had never really thought about it before. It just wasn't part of my life, but for some reason it was the parenting, it was the kids, it was like
I'm responsible for this.
I found out a lot about food and what was healthy and all of that stuff, and so that was then for me. But there'll be new avenues, new spaces where we can adventure and find new understanding. And I think that it's almost like there's a constant invitation to say, what is that? And it might be something to do with ourselves, and it might be something to do with our interconnection with others. But to be in a thriving life is to say yes to the invitation to know stuff.
To thrive is to gain knowledge and learning. And if I can really emphasize something, make sure it's accurate.
Yes.
There is so much misinformation. And then people are less and less understanding.
And I think,
because they're not understanding.
Yes.
Because the information that they're operating from isn't accurate.
Yeah, so this is more than just going on Twitter or social media and reading. It's go to the library
Or Google, and what source?
Yeah, like let's find the really. And I'm not bashing Twitter completely, but I just think that there's so much, like you said, so much misinformation. It's really hard to find out what is true, what it isn't. But actually, there are good sources of information. Find those, find the truth. Be okay to be proved wrong about stuff. That is the pursuit of understanding, right?
Yep.
And so, and yeah, read authors or read books that maybe wouldn't be in your set of beliefs, or because that's like part of learning. That's part of finding out, knowing stuff, is to be exposed to real sources of all sorts of different sides. And in that space, as individuals and as we connect as human beings, we thrive when we do that.
Yes. And we may not even survive if we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I know stuff, and the stuff I know is the truth, and it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But I know stuff. I am understanding. And that could be about a subject, a situation, yourself, or how something works. And whatever that something is, I am understanding. And the more understanding you have, the more you thrive. Mm-hmm. And the less understanding you have, or the limitations you put on your understanding, your knowledge of a subject, a situation, or self, or how something works, the less you're going to thrive.
And also, Tom, before we move on to the second one, in that space too, the more understanding that you have that is true and accurate, the more contribution you can bring.
Yes.
Because I think the point is you can look great and you can sound great, but unless you have the real understanding of how something works, or the scope of a situation, or whatever it is, there's a measure to how much you can contribute making progress on that thing.
Yep.
So if we want to be people who solve problems,
are thriving,
and who contribute to the world, understanding's key in that space.
Absolutely. Which leads us from I am understanding, knowledge about a subject, situation, self, or how something works, which allows us to thrive in the space of I am understanding, and that positive relationship manifesting empathy. So as we are living our lives, as I am living my life, and it intersects with, it connects with someone else's life, I am understanding and being understanding. And that can allow for forgiveness. That can allow for reconciliation. That can allow for mutual stimulation and inquiry. I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Because as we are living our lives, we're experiencing things that cause stress and need. And we may encounter distress and discontent. And we can run into avoidance and isolation. We can run into and encounter somebody who experiences resistance, defiance, anger, and they are not assertive, and an understanding response to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this incredible gift to be like that. And like you say, so many people, have something happening in their life, or like you just said, all of those things.
Yeah.
And it's so horrible to make a mistake or be frustrated or not be in that parasympathetic space, when you're triggered. When we've talked about tsunami of stress
Rest,
before,
recover, relax.
But so many people are swimming in that tsunami of stress.
Yeah, they're in the sympathetic flight or fight.
And when you do that, but then you have a friend or people around you that are, it's not like they're saying it doesn't matter, but they're like, hey, it's okay. I get it. I understand. I have empathy.
And be understanding.
Yeah.
Yes. So where I am understanding is about knowledge. I know stuff. I am understanding related to positive relationship manifesting empathy is I care about stuff.
Yeah. It's the care.
Yeah. I know stuff, understanding. I care about stuff. I am understanding. And those feed on each other. Those energize each other, or they suck the life out of.
Yeah, and to be in a place where, and again, this so applies to ourselves, our me, as well as the thee.
Yes.
Because I think that the self-critic, the self-hatred, you've got these high standards for yourself, and actually to have a narrative when you made a mistake or something and say, and have that care for yourself and say, of course you made a mistake, and have that understanding, and that helps you recover, learn, move on, make sure you try not to make the same mistake again. It helps us not be stuck,
Yes.
And so we can apply this to ourselves, but also with others. And when it doesn't happen, Tom, I think it could be so destructive not to have understanding, not to have, I love that word, care.
Yes.
People need
I
to
care
know
about
their
stuff.
care, and it translates to, it's not just stuff, it's people, the stuff that matters for people. We care about that. And so we understand. I think that's an incredible gift that you can give yourself and other people.
Yes. And without understanding, I know stuff, it could be compromised.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the third is understanding. I am understanding in terms of an informal agreement. And that can be with self, or it could be with others. We have an agreement. And the way I like to put that is, let's do stuff.
Yeah.
So there's the, I know stuff. I care about stuff. So let's do stuff. And if that is rooted in, if the doing of stuff and the agreement, whether that's me with me or me with thee, the stuff we're going to be doing, if it is, I know stuff, and that's the truth, and it's beneficial, and it's growing, then the stuff that we're doing is going to be thriving.
Yeah.
And if I know stuff and I care about stuff, there's going to be a passion in that. There's going to be a consideration. There's going to be empathy. There's going to be a working with as we're doing stuff. And if I know stuff and I care about stuff, grows into I am understanding, relationship and interaction and doing and an agreement, and it's thriving, it'll be thriving.
Yeah. And as you're talking there, and I love the phrases that you're repeating here. I know stuff, I care about stuff, let's do stuff. It really is a head, heart, hands thing, isn't it? It's this and actually when you think about, they all need to be in place. Without one of them, something becomes a little skewed, so we don't need loads of people in the world that just knows a lot of stuff without the compassion, without the caring, without the understanding of other human beings or themselves. We don't want people let's do stuff without the knowledge. Otherwise it's going to be disastrous, or without the care, And so I think that there is this, it seems very cyclic, of the three land together. They need to be together, but as they're together, there's this really powerful thriving space that's cultivated with knowledge, with compassion and care for ourselves and each other, and then also activated. We want to do stuff that when we have understandings, and that is the partnerships, let's do stuff together. And I think the other thing that I was thinking about that, Tom, with the we have an understanding, is it's very empowering. Like, it's quite hard when you don't have or when...
Yeah, because you're not on the same page.
Yeah, or when you're not sure about that. Like, when that just breeds insecurity.
Yes.
And so I don't know if you've ever been in situations where you've wanted to do stuff with people, but it's been so confusing. No one's on the same page, and actually it's better to do stuff on your own at that point,
That would be the default.
But when you get a group of people together where there's this clear understanding, we're on the same page, it's incredibly empowering, I think. And then you get that synergy of doing something together that not one of you could do on your own.
Yes.
And so that's the power of having an understanding that can really propel action. What are you laughing about?
Because you use the word propel, and I had this rabbit hole that I was going down of an application of this where the lack of understanding has been really significant. So I am understanding. I know stuff. I am understanding. I care about stuff. And this informal agreement, let's do stuff. I'm understanding. Recently, there were some people who were sent into space on a rocket, and
Yeah, you don't want to go into space if you don't have an understanding.
And they're on the International Space Station not for a couple of days, but for months, because yes, we know stuff, but we didn't know enough stuff. And the stuff we thought we knew wasn't the stuff that, And then we care about stuff. We're really motivated to send people into exploration of space and all of that, and very passionate, caring about that. And then they did stuff. Which... the reason I bring that up is because it goes right back to, because sometimes that happens. That just goes back to, I am understanding more. And I have more knowledge that is needed and important about a subject, a situation, self, others, and how something works. Well, I thought I understood that. Yeah, but I wasn't understanding.
It comes at great cost if you don't do it.
Yeah. Yes.
So like the I think they're coming back next year, aren't they?
Somebody else is getting them back because.
But you don't want to not have that all of those three understandings when it comes to going into space. But then that translates in all sorts of areas. We don't want to do that when it comes to starting a new business or
exploring new things ventures, and going where haven't gone before, etc. Yes. And this is why understanding can be about thriving, or it turns into surviving. And let's have it be about thriving, which even if with what I had understanding about and the knowledge I had about a subject, a situation, self, or how things work, gain more. Increase that. And then, yes, care about stuff. I care about stuff, but care in an informed way.
Yeah.
That is rooted in the truth, that is rooted in love, that is rooted in empathy and feeling into.
So that would be, if someone, I'm trying to think of an example, but say you had a day at work and a colleague was just like really kind of off with you for the day or something like that. Understanding them, it would be like, hey, let's go out for coffee, and finding out what is actually going on in their lives.
Yes, so
you're having a fuller understanding of what they're coming in.
More knowledge about it, yes, so that I can.
So then that gives you more empathy for them.
Yeah.
So and it helps you understand their snarkiness in the day.
Or whatever.
When you know that actually, they've got financial problems, or their marriage is falling apart, or whatever it is. But seeking that understanding, which is the knowledge of this person, gives you more understanding for them.
To care about stuff in beneficial ways, and then doing stuff that is actually beneficial and productive and visionary. Sure. Why not?
And then with having an understanding, what would you say there, Tom, for the listeners? I would say, pursue getting that clarity for having an understanding. Have the conversations, don't be fearful of gaining an understanding with each other or with yourself. It might be that you're like, okay, what am I going to do for this year? Go on your retreat day, write it down, gain clarity for an understanding of what you want to achieve in the year. Or it might be that you're with a group of friends and you're planning something and gain that understanding, because the security of it allows you to really do stuff either with yourself or with those other people. So
practical example of understanding could be to have a to-do list, but also create a get-to-do list. Oftentimes, and that may be a what? Everybody's heard of a to-do list. Have a get-to-do list along with the to-do list. And then maybe they even come together.
Yeah.
And if you have a to-do list and a get-to-do list, apply understanding. Because that's a list of things that involves, I am understanding, knowledge, to be able to do. Or knowledge about, hey, I get to do that. And then I am understanding. And that informed empathy that understands. And then acting on that. Let's do stuff. Let's do stuff that's a to-do. Let's do stuff that is a get-to-do. Sure. Yeah. And that may be me with thee, but let's do stuff.
Yeah.
And thrive.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so great. Well, we're going to be back next time with the letter V. We're getting into the hard letters of the alphabet, but we're looking forward to that conversation. But thanks for being with us, listening in.
Absolutely.
And we are rooting for you as you thrive.
You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.